Everyone, Father Jared coming to you, and coming to you with this month's September Beacons update. And just first, you probably saw from my pastor's desk from a few weeks ago that we will be changing up the Pastoral Council selections for the Unified Family Pastoral Council. So we'll now be having elections some point in October, hopefully, unless something comes up, as sometimes happens. So first, we'll be having that. So each pastoral council will be selecting 3 members from the nominations that we got from across the from parishioners to have that election ballot in October. So we'll be doing that. So that's number 1. So just please take note of that. Keep an eye out for that. We'll keep you updated as that is about. Secondly, at the end of this month, we'll be having our year-end financials. So that'll be coming up as well. And then also we're working on getting EFT, so electronic fund transfer for both St. Michael's and St. Peter's Paul, as that has not been an option there. So we're working on getting that done as well. And so all those things in motion there. And then as we kind of look at, continuing down the line on October 8th, so Sunday, October 8th, we will be having a staff open house. So we'll be having people that all of you can come to the Parish Office Center here in Sydney, right across from the church. And we'll be having an open house for people to come in, see where we're all stationed at, put faces with names, all those good things. So that will be getting done in, again, at the Parish Office Center here, 119 East Water Street, Sydney. So that'll be October 8th from 12 to 2. 12 to 2 is the time in which that will be taking place. So that should be great. We really look forward to that. Trying to remember, I forgot to bring my notebook with me. Oh well, I know that I had those 3 things. And then just a note about some, again, just with canon law stuff and this continued kind of claim that the Archbishop, the Archdiocese is not following canon law, that I'm not following canon law. And so there seems to be some miscommunication, like just thrown out there like you're breaking canon law, and it's like, how so? And I think that this, deserves a little bit of treatment. So we kind of keep on looking at this as though there's like in canon law, there's some sort of like, whenever it comes to the merger of parishes and the extinctive union of parishes and becoming one canonical parish, that there's somehow a violation taking place. And that's not really like, that's kind of a misunderstanding of how canon law works in this regard. Instead of kind of looking at it that way, you do have to look at it. The parish is a juridic person, and as such, it's more similar to kind of a corporate, like a corporate merger. Like whenever a corporate merger is taking place, there has to be all these different things taken care of. I don't know all the ins and outs of that in the corporate world, what they all look at, but obviously you have to look at like, well, how are we going to bring these together legally? Like what's going to be the base of operations, all those kind of things, right? So you kind of like figure out how this is all going to come together, and everybody kind of does it differently, right? And a lot of times you're going along, and then as it gets close to actually merging, then something will happen, whether it's a regulator or somebody else will come in and say, you can't do that. Okay, we can't do that. And it's not like they were breaking any laws. It's just like at that moment, there's a realization like that can't happen. So whenever we look at, canon law, mergers, all those things, whenever we talk about, well, what does the jurisprudence of the church, which is like legal precedents and legal practice of the church, really say about these things? It doesn't say that you're not allowed to do things like we're trying to do here in the Archdiocese. What does happen from time to time is that these cases get overturned, most often because of issues with procedure. Usually there's not, majority of cases, there's not like this issue with like, this overall is a bad thing to do. They usually, what the Vatican with the Apostolic See usually does is they say, no, there's something missing in your procedure. There wasn't a proper consultation, there wasn't a proper procedure, something goes wrong in that kind of realm of things. And so that's where a lot of majority of cases go. And then also, like, again, we need to make this distinction. We're not looking at doing relegation of churches to profane use. So my intention is every single one of our church buildings will still be standing, will still be there, whenever we have one canonical parish with 4 sacred spaces within parish boundaries. So when we look at that, that's not what we're talking about. So in those cases, the majority of those cases, like whenever they get appealed to Rome, they do get overturned, at least initially. Again, a lot of times it's because of procedures, and then the diocese goes back and they fix what's wrong in the procedure, and then they can move forward. However, whenever it comes to merger of parishes, so whenever it comes to bringing together what we're trying to do here in our situation, which is bring together 4 parishes into one, is that we are trying ultimately, or what we're working towards is a merger of parishes, either by amalgamation or merger. Yeah, so those are the 2 things. So I'm using 2 same terms. But as you do that, so as you do those actions, canonically speaking, only like 1 out of 10 of those cases get overturned in Rome. And again, like even a lot of those cases are due to procedure, and then usually that's where it comes back. And so the vast majority of cases of that sort of mergers don't get overturned. And so to be very clear about that, like that's the way that it typically works. Again, the Archbishop's no dummy. He has a doctorate in canon law. And on that, whenever I say that, that's not to say, whenever I say that, people have at times suggested, like, well, the Archbishop doesn't care. And it's like, he does. He's a canonist by his degrees, by what he's focused on. He's a jurist. He's a legalist. He's not a legalist. That has like a little different context when we talk about church talk, where we talk about things. But a jurist, so he is a canonist by practice. So he does know what he's talking about, and he doesn't have any malintent. It seems sometimes people think that there's some sort of underlying malintent here. Like, I don't think there's anything that could be further from the truth whenever it comes to the Archbishop. Definitely not something that's within his character at all. So I think that that's a misunderstanding, and misunderstanding of the man. And then also at the same time, I'm not a canonist, but at the same time, like, we did take classes under the seminary. I've talked with the Archbishop, with a number of other canonists in the diocese. It's not like I'm completely bereft of any knowledge here too. And also, like, there was a time when I was thinking about leaving seminary to go to law school after I graduated from college seminary. I got offered 2 full rides, so it's like I do have an interest in law as well and have an idea of how those things work. So another point along that way is whenever we, again, like a lot of times what I see happening whenever people talk about there's not a just cause, they're confusing just cause with grave cause in some cases, and also sometimes, and so that's one thing, that grave cause is like a much higher level. Just cause is a lower threshold that we have to meet in order to bring parishes together. So in order to close a church, in order to relegate a church to profane use, grave cause, merger, just cause. So it's a lower bar that you have to cross. And it's not real well defined exactly what a just cause is in canon law. And so it can be a little iffy. However, like people have said, well, just because we have fewer priests is not a just cause. And that's true by itself. It's not a just cause. However, a number of factors can be used in looking at this to say that there is a just cause. So a way that I would think about this is, whenever you're looking at trying to figure out or convict somebody of a crime, like let's say a robbery, you may look and say, well, the getaway vehicle matches is one that's owned by, is the same kind of vehicle that's owned by a primary suspect. That in itself is just circumstantial evidence. However, then you begin to say, well, as they was driving away, they're shot at by the police, and there's a bullet hole on the back of the suspect's vehicle. Like, okay, that begins to add a little more up, still not like enough, but then it's like, also we found like footprints which are the same size as the suspects. And you begin to pull all these factors together, which then help you to build this kind of more succinct and credible case, right? And so it is with just cause. Just cause is, like, even though it's singular in its grammatical standard, there can be a threshold of multiple causes that contribute to it being a just cause. And we can look at those things and say, like, well, what's just cause? And I've I've highlighted a lot of these things, like what are the benefits whenever we look at this. Like obviously there is an issue with number of priests. People have said like, well, we have plenty of priests, and it's like now, but in 2025 that number begins to decline, and hopefully not too steeply, but it could possibly descend very, very steeply. And so that's like one reason there is like certainly that is a concern. Number two, there's also a concern here about the ability of the diocese overall to administer, to assign priest, right? So whenever it comes to assigning priest, not every priest is necessarily ready to take on the role of pastor. Like I think that as you look at that, that also begins to like say, okay, not every single priest is meant to be a pastor, is meant to be in that role. And so as we look at that, then that becomes like, okay, that is like an overarching issue there, that as we look at it, like, again, by itself, it's not enough of a cause. But then number two, like we do as a pastor, as a parish, we're supposed to govern, so administer, sanctify, and teach. And again, like to go back to the point about priests, like, well, a pastor's primary, like a pastor, one assigned pastor, one of his primary roles is to administer. And so usually the pastor's probably going to be the one who administers, has the ability to put people around him to help him minister and govern a parish. So that's kind of like that aspect of things, right? And then number two, we're also going like the sanctifying. So in these different rules, the pastor can delegate certain aspects of his ministry to others, right? So he can, in this case, like whenever you have vicars, I can administer the sanctification office, which is celebrating Mass, forgiveness of sins, the sacraments, anointings, all those different things that certainly each of our four priests is capable of doing. And then number three, like whenever it comes to teaching, I look at the makeup of our priest, within our family. It's like, do we get to teach as much as what I want to? No, but at the same time, there's been this great freedom that like Father Reckers is leading a book study on the Eucharist right now, which I hear is great. I have no doubt that it's great because he's wicked smart and just knows where to find so much information. And so he's just a seemingly bottomless pit of just knowledge. And so it's great, it's beautiful. And, we have each week our vicars write articles to help explain the faith a little better. And they've been balling. I mean, like they're amazing. They're so good. And so, and the ability to delegate, what I think beacons and bringing together as one canonical parish allows us to do is to better handle that entire load. Because again, to put all of that necessarily on just one priest baseline is kind of hard. And again, like people like Jody Blendauer and Jill Heitmeyer and Steph and George Schultes have all just been so instrumental in helping me to begin working towards how do we better look after all these things. Because was there anything seriously wrong? No, but there's also, I think, a greater ability for the pastor to actually be involved in the administration of every part of the parish, because he doesn't have to do everything, or he doesn't have to like just sacrifice and just hope that somehow it's getting taken care of. Now he can delegate people that are more directly related, that deal with him on a more daily basis, that are overseeing these different aspects of parish life, so that it's better taken care of. And that's something that's still being worked out because it always takes time. So as we look at that, and so that's also part of it there too. And I think also there's a tendency to isolate our idea of like, okay, here is the parish's rights and responsibilities or whatever. Yeah, so all those things that are contained within canon law. Same way, there's also certain rights that are given to the bishop, in case our archbishop, and to priests and then pastors. And so there's all these other groups that also have their own list of rights and responsibilities in canon law. And so you can't just like simply isolate out the parish and say, well, it says this right. And it's like, well, whenever you look at those things, there's things contained within canon law, that things such as like a priest is to have a day away. He's supposed to have a day off each week. He's supposed to have 4 weeks, I believe. 4 weeks of vacation with 3 weekends. And then and I believe then also a week given for retreat. So that's really kind of like 5 weeks there. Do I think that given in a situation to where a priest is at one parish kind of by himself, do I think it really allows him to take full advantage of what he's been given there? Not really. I mean, I know a lot of priests who can't even get away on the weekend in those kind of situations. And so you can say, well, that's kind of buttoned up against the rights of a priest. And same way, a bishop also has a right to govern, assign priests to a given parish. And so he also has a sort of investment in the parish. He also has rights in properly governing the entire diocese as a whole. So while a parish has rights in and of itself set from the diocese also has a set of rights and responsibilities that also allow it to have some control over what happens at the parochial parish level. And so as you look at all those different details, it's like, what does all that mean? Again, I'm not a canonist, so I don't exactly know, but I do just observe that there seems to be just a focus on one part of canon law that seems to then be at kind of the expense of not acknowledging what exactly, like all these other things that we have to balance, and also then if you look at the diocese, which is the local church, so anytime you see local church in any sort of church documents, it's talking about a diocese. It's not talking about parish or just a community. It is talking about a diocese or archdiocese in our case. So local church and church documents means diocese or archdiocese, depending on if it's metropolitan or not. So what I'm trying to point out there is that there are a lot of different aspects to canon law that I don't know, but also I don't think just simply isolating the parish in canon law is exactly what canon law intends. It's not something that exists just in a vacuum all by itself, parish. It exists within a larger church, a larger system of canon law that also has its own ins and outs that we have to take into account, and what the ultimate goal is, which is the salvation of souls. So again, it's kind of a lot of blubbering, a lot of going on there. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to point out is that the Archbishop does have skills in canon law. He does have knowledge there. Our Chancellor, our Vicar General, both priests with canon law degrees, they both are good men, good priests who do want what's best, as is the Archbishop. And so kind of, again, this continued suggestion, which I think is misunderstanding, that they're somehow willing something, that they're doing something that they're trying to hide from us, I think is, again, just not warranted given the situation. So again, there's been great openness on the Archbishop's part and other people's parts as we journey through this process. So there's that. So I talked a lot about that, much longer than I planned to, but hey, that's the way that life sometimes goes. So I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful, and just amazing weekend. So with that, I hope each and every one of you have a blessed day, and may God bless you and your family. Bye.